Evelyn's knees buckled before her mind could catch up, the bar stool clattering against the terracotta tiles as she gripped the edge of the counter to steady herself. The restaurant, built brick by painstaking brick in this sun-bleached corner of Malaga's Costa del Sol, had been her anchor these last years, a shrine to the girl they'd lost. La Marisma wasn't just a place for paella and pitchers of Tinto de Verano, it was Mackenzie's legacy etched into every mural of crashing waves and olive groves, every menu item named after her whims, the Max mussels with garlic and chili, the sunset sangria she dreamed up on lazy beach afternoons. And now, here she was, flesh and blood, stepping over the threshold with eyes like storm-tossed seas, the same hazel flecked with gold that had haunted Evelyn's dreams. Mackenzie. The word escaped Evelyn like a sob, barely audible over the sudden hush that blanketed the room. Diners, mostly expat Americans like themselves, retirees chasing eternal summer in Spain, stared openly, their plates forgotten. Tom, Evelyn's husband of 32 years, emerged from the kitchen wiping his hands on a towel, his broad shoulders sagging under the weight of disbelief. At 58, he still carried the build of the Chicago contractor he'd been before they fled the Midwest winters for this expatriate idol, but his face had hollowed out since the accident, lines carved deep like furrows in fallow earth. The accident. That's what they'd called it, what the local Guardia Civil had chalked up to after the battered Fiat was pulled from the ravine off the Ronda Road. No body, just a scorched wallet with Mackenzie's ID, a silver locket with a faded photo of her and Madison tucked inside. Madison. The name twisted in Evelyn's gut like a rusted knife. Their daughter's girlfriend, the one who'd shattered their fragile acceptance with her fierce love, only to vanish into the ether right after, leaving behind a trail of unanswered calls and a half-packed suitcase in their guest room. Mackenzie didn't move at first, her backpack slung over one shoulder, dirt-streaked from whatever odyssey had brought her here. She was 28 now, the baby fat of her college days burned away by time and trials, leaving her lean and sun-weathered, her auburn waves cropped shorter, framing a face sharpened by secrets. "I didn't die, Mom," she said, the words flat, rehearsed, as if she'd practiced them in 100 mirrors. "I couldn't come back. Not then." Tom crossed the room in 3 strides, his calloused hands hovering as if afraid she'd dissolve like sea foam. "Jesus, kiddo," he rasped, voice cracking on the edge of tears. "We thought. The funeral, the ashes we scattered at the cove. It was all for nothing." He pulled her into a bear hug anyway, the kind that smelled of bay leaves and fresh bread, and Mackenzie stiffened only for a moment before melting into it, her body shaking with silent heaves. The patrons began to murmur, a ripple of whispers turning to applause, claps for the miracle, the prodigal's return. Evelyn forced a smile, waving them off with trembling hands, but inside, a storm brewed. 5 years. 5 years of grief that had rebuilt their lives around her absence, of nights when she'd traced the empty chair at the family table, wondering if she'd ever forgive the girl who'd stolen her daughter's heart and, in some twisted way, her future. Madison. Where the hell was she in all this? As the initial chaos ebbed, Tom herding Mackenzie to a back booth, Evelyn pouring glasses of their house red with hands that still shook, they pieced together the fragments. It turned out the crash hadn't been fatal. Mackenzie had walked away with bruises and a fractured wrist, but in the haze of shock and the pursuing headlights of her father's disapproval-fueled rage from months prior, she'd seized the moment. Faked her death, hitched to Gibraltar, then hopped a ferry to Morocco. From there, a labyrinth, hostels in Marrakesh, olive harvests in Fez, teaching English in Tangier. A new name, a new life, running from the weight of a family that had loved her in fits and starts, from a love that had demanded everything and given back ashes. But why? Evelyn pleaded, sliding into the booth across from her, the vinyl creaking under her. The restaurant's walls, painted in soft ochre, seemed to close in, the mural of the Strait of Gibraltar mocking her with its endless blue. "We mourned you, Mac. We built this place for you." Mackenzie's gaze dropped to her clasped hands, knuckles white. "For me? Or for the version of me you could stomach? The one without her?" There it was, the her. Madison. The golden girl from the University of Seville exchange program, with her straight blonde hair and laugh like wind chimes, who'd swept in like a sirocco and upended their tidy world. Evelyn remembered the first dinner, the way Madison's hand had brushed Mackenzie's under the table, electric and unapologetic. Tom had cleared his throat too many times. Evelyn had baked extra cookies, a peace offering wrapped in denial. The fight that precipitated it all replayed in Evelyn's mind like a scratched record. Tom, red-faced after too much Rioja, slamming his fist on the table. "This isn't how we raised you, Mackenzie. Sneaking around with that girl like it's some phase. What about grandkids? What about normal?" Mackenzie's retort, "Normal? Your normal suffocated me." Had ended with her storming out, Madison's taillights fading down the dusty road to Malaga. Weeks later, the crash. Coincidence? Or culmination? "I loved her," Mackenzie said now, her voice a threadbare whisper. "Madison. We were planning to leave, start over in Barcelona. But after the fight, I couldn't drag her into more of this poison. So I let her go, let you all think I was gone. It was mercy." Tom's face crumpled, the big man's armor cracking. "Mercy? Christ, kid, we were broken. Your mother hasn't slept through the night since." He glanced at Evelyn, his eyes pleading for absolution they both knew was hers to give. The dinner rush was picking up, snowbirds from Ohio calling for their usual Max mussels, so they retreated to the apartment above the restaurant, a sunlit area with potted geraniums and views of the glittering bay. There, over reheated tortilla española, the stories spilled like overripe figs. Mackenzie spoke of the nomad's life, the thrill of anonymity in souks, the ache of solitude under star-pricked Moroccan skies. She'd changed, she admitted, tattooed a compass rose on her forearm for the paths not taken, learned to surf in Tarifa's wild waves. But the pullback had been inexorable, a postcard from Madison glimpsed in a Tangier cafe, postmarked from Seattle, "I still taste the salt on your skin. Find me when you're ready." Madison. Alive, thriving, a graphic designer now, apparently, with a life stitched from the remnants of their shared dreams. Evelyn's chest tightened. She'd always blamed her, the interloper who'd turned their straight-A student into this whirlwind of confusion. But hearing Mackenzie recount their stolen weekends in hidden coves, the way Madison had sketched her portrait under olive trees, laughing off the world's judgments, it stirred something softer, a reluctant bloom of understanding. As night fell, the restaurant's lights twinkling like fireflies below, Tom retired early, feigning exhaustion, but Evelyn lingered on the balcony with Mackenzie. The air hummed with cicadas and distant flamenco from a nearby taberna. "I was wrong," Evelyn confessed, her voice carried on the breeze. "About her. About us. We built La Marisma to honor you, but maybe it was to honor the parts of you we ignored." Mackenzie leaned against the railing, her profile sharp against the moonlit sea. "It's not too late, Mom. But I need to see her. Madison. That's why I'm here, not just for forgiveness, but for the truth." Evelyn nodded, the weight of years lifting fractionally. Downstairs, the dinner service thrummed on, oblivious to the resurrection unfolding above. But Evelyn knew, this was only the intermission. The real drama, the one laced with betrayal's bitter tang, was yet to crest. The next morning dawned with the ferocity of a Spanish summer, sunlight slicing through the balcony shutters like accusations unspoken. Mackenzie woke to the scent of fresh churros frying below, her mother's ritual apology in batter and sugar. But the sweetness soured in her mouth as she replayed the night's confessions, the fragile bridge they begun to build threatening to buckle under the secrets she'd yet to unearth. Madison. The name was a talisman and a torment, conjured in every anonymous face during her exile, every half-remembered dream of tangled sheets and whispered promises. Down in the kitchen, Tom was a whirlwind of redemption, flipping eggs with exaggerated flair while humming an off-key rendition of Volare. "Look at you, alive and kicking," he boomed, sliding a plate her way. "Gonna help your old man today. The lunch crowd's murder on these tourist menus." His eyes, crinkled at the corners, held a plea, "Stay. Make this real." Mackenzie managed a smile, the first genuine one since her return, but it faltered when Evelyn entered, phone in hand, her face ashen. I called her," Evelyn said, a voice barely above the sizzle of the pan. "Madison. Tracked her down through that old alumni group from Seville. She's in Barcelona now, actually, freelancing, says she's good. But Mac." She trailed off, handing over the device as if it burned. The message was terse, a digital ghost. "Evelyn. Is this a joke? Mackenzie's gone. We buried that with the rest." Followed by coordinates to a cafe in the Gothic Quarter, a timestamp for noon tomorrow. No warmth, no relief, just coordinates, like a challenge flung across the miles. "I have to go," Mackenzie said, the words tasting of finality. Tom protested, citing the restaurant's peak season, the suppliers en route, but Evelyn silenced him with a look. "Let her," she murmured. "Some debts aren't paid with paella." The drive to Barcelona was a blur of Autovia asphalt and olive-dotted hills, Mackenzie behind the wheel of their ancient Renault, radio crooning Joan Manuel Serrat ballads that tugged at heartstrings long frayed. She'd left Morocco on a whim, a battered Ural pass and a gnawing certainty that home, whatever shape it took, was calling. But Barcelona, with its labyrinthine alleys and gaudy spires, had been their dream city, the one where Madison had sketched plans for a life unbound. A tiny flat in Gracia, mornings tangled in linen, evenings wandering La Rambla hand in disguise. She arrived early, the café a tucked-away gem with ivy-cloaked walls and the aroma of courtidu cutting through the humid air. Madison was already there, perched at an outdoor table under a striped awning, her blonde hair now streaked with subtle caramel, pulled into a loose ponytail that spoke of hurried mornings and creative chaos. At 28, she looked every bit the artist she'd become. Canvas tote slung over the chair, sketchpad open to a half-finished portrait of a woman with haunted eyes that Mackenzie recognized as her own. Mad. The name slipped out like a breath held too long, and Madison's head snapped up, her blue eyes, sharp as Aegean glass, widening in a mirror of yesterday's shock. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that table, the clink of porcelain, the murmur of Catalan chatter, the unspoken chasm of 5 years. "You're supposed to be dead," Madison said, not accusatory, but matter-of-fact, as if stating the weather. She didn't stand, didn't embrace. Instead, she pushed a sketchpad aside, revealing a small stack of letters bound with twine, their letters, the ones Mackenzie had written but never sent, intercepted somehow in the post-ghost aftermath. Mackenzie replied, sliding into the seat opposite, the wrought iron scraping like teeth on bone. "To all of you." It was easier than facing the wreckage. The words hung, heavy as the storm clouds gathering over the Sagrada Familia spires. Madison's laugh was bitter, a sound Mackenzie had once chased like sunlight. "Easier. You left me to grieve alone, Mac. I scattered those fake ashes with your parents, held your mother's hand while she wailed. I loved you, fiercely, stupidly, and you repaid it by erasing us." The betrayal stung, sharper than Mackenzie had braced for. She'd imagined this reunion as catharsis, a romantic reel of tears and tangled limbs, but Madison's gaze held steel, forged in the forge of abandonment. Over strong black coffee that burned going down, the floodgates cracked, Madison's side of the exile. After the crash, she'd waited, months in Malaga, fielding Evelyn's veiled barbs. She was always headstrong, that one, Tom's gruff silences. Then the move to Barcelona, a scholarship to the Escola Massana, nights spent inking designs inspired by lost love, waves crashing into cliffs, lovers' hands parting like tectonic plates. "But I never stopped looking," Madison admitted, her voice softening as she traced the rim of her cup. "Private investigators, social media ghosts. I even came back to La Marisma once, incognito, just to feel you in the air. Your muscles. Still perfect." Mackenzie's throat tightened. "I ran because I was ashamed." Dad's words. They burrowed. "Made me think we were a mistake, that loving you was the thing that broke me." She reached across, fingers brushing Madison's, the contact electric, a spark jumping the gap. Madison didn't pull away, but her eyes glistened with unshed storms. "It's not shame that broke us," Madison whispered. "It's fear. Yours, theirs. But I waited, Mac. Even when it hurt." The afternoon unraveled into evening, the cafe's shadows lengthening as they wandered the Bari Gotic's cobbled streets, words tumbling like Barca's fountains. Madison showed her the studio flat, walls papered in sketches, portraits of women with Mackenzie's fire, abstracts of sea glass and regret. They shared a bottle of Priorat on the tiny balcony, the city pulsing below like a heartbeat rediscovered. Laughter crept in, tentative at first, then full-throated, memories of that first kiss in a Seville tapas bar, the time they'd skinny-dipped in the Guadalquivir under a harvest moon, consequences be damned. But as stars pricked the velvet sky, the idyll fractured. Madison's phone buzzed, an email from a client, innocuous, but it unlocked a drawer Mackenzie hadn't known existed. "There's someone," Madison confessed, voice small against the hum of traffic. "Elena. She's steady. A curator at the Macbeth. We've been together 2 years." The words landed like a rogue wave, sucking the air from Mackenzie's lungs. Betrayal, not hers to claim, but visceral all the same. 2 years, she echoed, the wine turning to vinegar. "While I was piecing myself back together in the desert, you—" "I mourned you first," Madison cut in, fierce now, standing to pace the cramped space. "Grief doesn't have an expiration date, Mac. Elena gets that. She knows about us, every scar, every what-if. But you ghosted me. How was I supposed to wait forever?" The argument escalated, voices rising like a tempest, old wounds reopening, Mackenzie's fear of her family's rejection, Madison's resentment at being the other, in a love shadowed by secrecy. Plates rattled in the sink, a sketchpad hit the floor, pages fluttering like wounded birds. "I came back for us," Mackenzie shouted, the raw edge of desperation fraying her calm. "Not to disrupt your tidy life." Madison stopped, chest heaving, tears carving tracks through her mascara. "And I let you in anyway. Because damn it, I never stopped loving you. But love isn't a fairy tale, it's choices. And you chose to die." The silence that followed was a chasm, bridged only by the tentative touch of Madison's hand on her arm. "Stay," she murmured. "Not forever. Just let's try." Mackenzie nodded, the fight draining like tide from shore, but doubt lingered, a shadow on the moon. Back in Malaga the next day, the restaurant awaited like a prodigal's feast, Evelyn's embrace tighter, Tom's jokes lighter, but the call from Barcelona echoed. Madison was coming, to face the Harpers, to claim or close the chapter. The air crackled with portent, Evelyn sensed it in the way Mackenzie's smiles faltered, Tom in the extra bottle of Rioja uncorked for nerves. La Marisma that night was alive with the season's swell, American accents mingling with Andalusian lilt, laughter chasing away the ghosts. But as Mackenzie plated sunset sangria, her hands trembled, not from jet lag, but from the precipice ahead. The door chime would ring again, and with it, the truth, that resurrection demanded reckoning, and love, in all its messy glory, was the hardest miracle of all. The evening Madison arrived, La Marisma transformed into a stage set for reckoning, fairy lights strung like hesitant stars across the rafters, casting a warm glow on tables pushed together for the makeshift family summit. Evelyn had outdone herself, platters of gambas al ajillo steaming with garlic promise, a whole dorado grilled golden, salads of heirloom tomatoes drizzled in balsamic that wept like old sorrows. Tom hovered by the wine rack, selecting bottles with the solemnity of a priest, something robust, forgiving, American in its boldness amid the Spanish subtlety. Mackenzie paced the kitchen, her compass tattoo itching under the fluorescent hum, a reminder of directions forsaken. 24 hours since the Barcelona blowout, and the bruise of Elena's ghost lingered, Madison had promised clarity, a clean break if that's what truth demanded. But clarity was a luxury in love's fog, and Mackenzie's heart, patched from Moroccan mending, quailed at the fraying seams. The chime came at 8 sharp, a herald's toll. Madison stepped in, sundress fluttering like a white flag, her toad exchanged for a simple clutch, blonde waves loose and windswept from the coastal drive. She looked every inch the invader turned ally, eyes scanning the room until they locked on Mackenzie's, holding a gaze that said I'm here, flaws and all. Evelyn approached first, wiping flour from her apron, the lines around her mouth softening into something like grace. Madison, she said, extending a hand that trembled only slightly. It's good to see you breathing easy. The words were a bridge, rickety but extended, and Madison took it, her grip firm. Mrs. Harper. Thank you, for the invite, for not hanging up yesterday. Tom's nod was gruffer, a backslap disguised as welcome, but his eyes betrayed the churn. The man who'd once barred this door now held it open, schooled by Loss's unforgiving tutor. They settled at the corner booth, the one with the best view of the mural, a stylized straight, waves merging east and west, and the stories flowed like the Rioja poured. Madison spoke of Barcelona's bustle, her exhibits at indie galleries, the way grief had sculpted her art into something raw and redemptive. I kept a sketch of Mac from that Seville summer, she said, pulling a folded print from her clutch, Mackenzie mid-laugh, sun-dappled, unburdened. It was my North Star. Evelyn traced the lines with a fingertip, her voice thick. We were fools. Tom and I, we came here for reinvention, left Chicago's gray for this gold, but we dragged our baggage. Thought love like yours was a detour, not the road. Tom grunted assent, his admission halting. I was scared, kid. Of losing you to a world that chews up folks like us. But losing you for real. That taught me. The air thickened with olive branches, tentative toasts clinking glasses, laughter bubbling up as Madison recounted their infamous Guadalquivir escapade, nearly caught by lantern-wielding locals, fleeing in hysterics. Mackenzie watched it unfold, her chest loosening, the restaurant's hum a chorus to this fragile harmony. For a moment, it felt possible, a tapestry rewoven, threads of betrayal bleached by time's relentless sun. But drama, like the Sirocco, shifts without mercy. Midway through the Mac's muscles, as shells cracked open to reveal tender hearts, Evelyn's phone buzzed, an insistent vibration from the pocket of her apron. She glanced at the screen, color draining from her face. It's the lawyer, she murmured, stepping away to the kitchen archway. Tom followed, their murmurs a low rumble, words like settlement and claim slicing through the din. Mackenzie's fork paused mid-air. What lawyer? Evelyn returned, Tom at her elbow, both wearing the masks of parents caught in crossfire. It's nothing, Evelyn started, but Madison's sharp intake said otherwise. The restaurant, Tom barreled on, ever the blunt force. La Marisma's deed, it's tied up in the estate from the accident. Insurance payout we got, thinking you were gone. Now that you're back, there's paperwork. And a lien from the builders we stiffed during the Reno, back when grief had us in knots. Madison's eyes narrowed, the artist's intuition flaring. A lien. How much? Enough to sink us, Evelyn whispered, sinking into her seat. We poured everything into this place, your place, on credit, faith. But the small print. It bites now. The revelation landed like a stone in still water, ripples distorting the evening's peace. Mackenzie's mind reeled, the murals, the menus, all erected on the pyre of her presumed death, now crumbling under resurrection's weight. You built it on my ghost, she said, not bitter, but hollow. And now my living self threatens to bury it. Tom's face reddened, the old defensiveness rising. We did it for you, Mac. To keep your spirit alive when you thought I'd stolen Madison and run. The words escaped before she could leash them, the room's warmth turning chill. Madison stiffened, her hand finding Mackenzie's under the table, a silent anchor. But the fracture deepened when Evelyn, voice quavering, laid bare the deeper cut. We reached out to Madison after you left. Not to blame, but to settle. Gave her a payout, from the insurance. A goodbye fund, we called it. To start fresh. Madison's grip slackened, betrayal's bloom stark on her face. You paid me off. Like I was the consolation prize for your dead daughter? She stood, chair scraping, the diner murmurs swelling into a tide. I took it because I was drowning, Evelyn. Nights I couldn't paint, couldn't breathe without her. But it wasn't closure, it was a cage. The argument erupted then, voices overlapping in a cacophony of hurt, Tom's justifications tumbling into Evelyn's apologies, Mackenzie's pleas for pause lost in the gale. Plates pushed aside, wine spilled like bloodless wounds, the mural's waves seeming to swell, threatening to swallow them whole. Madison, tears streaming, grabbed her clutch. I came for truth, not this, your guilt money, your memorial that's more mausoleum than home. Wait. Mackenzie surged after her, bursting through the door into the night, the coastal air salty and sharp. Madison halted under a street lamp's halo, shoulders shaking. Don't, she gasped. This family's a riptide, Mac. Pulls you under with love's name. But Mackenzie closed the distance, hands framing Madison's face, thumbs brushing away salt tracks. Then we'll swim out together. Not as ghosts, not as memorials, but as us. Flawed, fighting, free. Madison searched her eyes, the storm yielding to dawn's tentative light. And them. The restaurant. We save it. All of us. Turn the lean into legacy, crowdfund from the expats, your art on the walls, my recipes reborn. A beat, then softer, Elena. Gone, Madison said, a small smile breaking through. Last night. Said she couldn't compete with a miracle. They kissed then, under the Andalusian stars, not the frantic passion of youth, but a deeper vow, tempered by tempests weathered. Laughter, raw and real, followed as they re-entered La Marisma, arms linked, to face the wreckage. Inside, Evelyn and Tom waited, faces etched with the humility of the humbled. We're sorry, Evelyn breathed, rising to pull Madison into an embrace that smelled of garlic and grace. Let us make it right. Not with money, with us. The night stretched into dawn's planning, calls to lawyers under cafe awnings, sketches for a resurrection gala fundraiser, Mackenzie's compass guiding them toward common ground. Weeks blurred into a frenzy, posters plastered on Malaga's promenades, Madison's portraits auctioned to wide-eyed snowbirds, Tom's grill firing up for pop-up feasts. The lean loomed, but community surged, tales of lost loves reclaimed, toasts to daughters returned. On gala night, La Marisma brimmed, candles flickering on every surface, flamenco guitar strumming redemption's rhythm. Mackenzie and Madison danced in the cleared space, bodies swaying to an unseen tide, while Evelyn and Tom watched from the bar, hands entwined, their exile's isolation dissolved in the crowd's warmth. It wasn't perfection, no family is, no love unscathed by scars. But in that sun-kissed haven on Spain's edge, they forged a new normal. Human, heartfelt, a testament that even graves can bloom. Mackenzie, no longer a memory but a maker, whispered to Madison amid the whirl, we made it. And in the chime of the door welcoming strangers turned kin, they knew, the real miracle wasn't return, but renewal.